Hi, I'm Mary, and if you're a single Christian woman over the age of 40 and you love God, but maybe you really just don't love being single, this is for you. Today, I want to talk about seeing yourself as the prize. I was watching Steve Harvey one time, and a woman was asking him like how she could get this man that she was dating to really want her and be invested in the relationship. And Steve Harvey said, quit acting like he's the prize, you're the prize. And that really stayed with me because she was trying to figure out how to be chosen by this guy, how to do the right things, say the right things, and be the type of woman who could, quote, win. And when Steve Harvey said that about quit acting like he's the prize, you're the prize, that really touched me. A lot of women, I think especially successful women, we tend to think that finding a good man is the goal. And I put the emphasis on us finding a good man. And we feel like our friends who found someone, they're lucky. And then we start to feel like, well, I need to be better. I need to position myself well. I need to present myself well. And I mean, I'm a marketing person, so I'm the first one who will talk about positioning a product and being competitive in the marketplace. But the problem for us as single women is when we get into that mindset, we're coming from a place of believing that that man has value. And listen, everybody has value. That's not what I'm saying. But when we see it as, I'll be so lucky if he picks me, then first of all, we're devaluing ourselves. We're overvaluing another person. And then what happens is, because we think like, oh, I got this good man, I can't lose him, we will start to tolerate inconsistency. We will put up with disrespect. We actually will settle for less than what we truly want. And like I said, when you believe that you have to compete with other women to get a man, and listen, the demographics and the numbers bear this out, that there are more single professional women than there are single professional men. So I'm not saying that the numbers aren't real. But when you're in the mindset of, I've got to compete, I've got to get his attention, I've got to be better than all these other girls. Someone made a comment to me recently about, plus you're working in a university and you're around all these really young, beautiful women. And I said, look, I already know I cannot compete with a 20-year-old girl. I mean, I really can't. And that's just being realistic, number one. And number two is that I don't feel that I need to compete with a 20-year-old. I used to feel that way, like, how am I going to compete with younger women? Now I know I cannot, and I also don't need to do that. But when you're coming from that place of scarcity, you start to give more than you should give. You overlook things that you should not be overlooking. And you start playing to keep his interest. And you're, like I said a moment ago, you're positioning yourself as less valuable. Proverbs 18:22 says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And I like that because it says, he who finds a wife, not the woman who goes out looking for a husband. Now, I'm not saying that you just sit back and do nothing, but you don't need to chase men. You don't need to compete to be chosen. And your job is not to prove your worth, because that's what I used to do all the time. And I see a lot of single women who do this. So a man will ask, what are you bringing to the table? Which, first of all, I think any man who's asking that question, that's a red flag. And then women start to feel like, I need to sell myself, and a feeling of, I need to impress him with my accomplishments. And a lot of times women will start leading with their resume, their job, their accomplishments. And men are not looking to compete with women. Most of the time, men do not want to compete with the woman that they love. And so when you start in with this, like, I'm great, I'm successful, I make money, I do all these things, then you're actually in a more masculine energy, and it's more likely to be a turnoff. Now, I'm not saying that you should play small, but you don't have to prove to him, hey, look, I'm such a great girl. And I used to do this in a lot of different ways. It would be in how I spoke, but it would also be in, let me invite him over and I'll cook him a great meal and I'll act really wifey so he can envision me as his wife. And the problem is that it was really me, like, pick me, oh, please pick me. And that, that just always worked against me. And here's the thing. I love how when Steve Harvey said, quit acting like he's the prize, you're the prize. Men are competitive. Men like to win. Okay, that's why they like to play sports and watch sports. That's why they like to, engage in online gambling, and they'll set up competitions with their friends over just about anything. They like to compete and they like to win. And so when you are the prize, he wins you. And seeing yourself as the prize is not about being arrogant. It's not about thinking you're better than other people. It's about how you see yourself. And it's a mindset shift from, I hope he chooses me, to, I will choose what is right for me. One thing that I train my students on when I'm talking to them about interviewing for jobs is, I tell them, okay, so yes, you're going to an interview and you want the job, possibly. And you're feeling like, I need a job, I've got student loans, I got to pay bills, I really need this job. And yes, that's part of it. Yes, you want them to see you as a candidate, but you are also interviewing them to see if that's a company you want to work for. And I'll tell you that when I have coached students over the years, who really ends up getting the job? A lot of times it's the student who is kind of like, well, I'm not sure if I want to take this. I have some other interviews. It's scarcity where you are scarce. We value things that are rare, okay? That's why we value diamonds and not pine cones, because if something is rare, it's more valuable. So when you're just another pick-me chick, and I used to hear that and think, well, I'm not like that, but I was totally like that. Like I said, I'll tell you how it comes across. It comes across as trying too hard. Okay, like you're trying too hard to be the one that he likes. And listen, if you have to try that hard for a man to love you, he's not really going to love you, because people should love each other based on who they are as people, not on how well they perform. And it's about shifting your attention from focusing on him and what does he want to focusing on your own life. And so when you have a life that you enjoy, you feel peaceful, you find your life to be interesting and fun, and yes, you still want a relationship, but you're enjoying your life, then what starts to happen is you become the prize, and he starts to figure out how can he fit in to your life. And if you don't see yourself as the prize, if you don't see yourself as valuable, then how will anybody else see that? And this is not about saying affirmations. I mean, I'm a huge fan of affirmations, but what is better is if you are really and truly creating this, what I call the wonderful life. And that's a life where you feel happy, you feel peaceful, you're doing cool stuff in your life, because then you're happy, and happy women attract men. And even if he doesn't come along, you're happy, and that's what you wanted the whole time anyway. Your value is not something you earn. Now, this has always been a huge struggle for me, because I have always been the kind of person that I believe my value is tied to what I do. Now, Jesus doesn't require us to do things to earn his approval and to earn our salvation. And that's illustrated clearly when Jesus was on the cross and one of the criminals said, "I believe that you are who you say you are. I believe that you're the Son of God. And I hope you'll remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus says, "This very day you will be with me in paradise." Well, that guy was a legit criminal. Like, he deserved the death penalty. He could not get down off that cross and do anything. He couldn't make amends. He couldn't live his life right. All that was asked was that he would believe, and he believed in his heart and he confessed it in his mouth. That's what St. Paul tells us is the requirement for salvation. So when I started to see that I don't have to keep jumping through hoops to prove I'm a valuable person, first of all, it takes a lot of attention away. Like, I like to do things. I'm a doer and I like to accomplish things. So it didn't change my drive or my ability to get things done, but it took the tension off. Like, okay, I'm doing things because I enjoy them, not because I need to do them to be a good person. And I'll tell you, I think a lot of times men pick up on that tension when we're trying so hard, and they can't necessarily verbalize what it is, but they might just say, "I don't know, she seems kind of uptight," or "she seems kind of, bossy or controlling." And even if that's not where you're coming from, that tension is still there because you don't think you're enough just as you are. And, a lot of times we feel like we have to be perfect. I have to look a certain way. I have to do a certain thing. I have to drive a certain type of car. I have to gain weight, lose weight, get plastic surgery. We think of all these things. And, the truth is, a lot of men really just don't look at those things. They want a woman who is, I'll tell you the words that come up frequently when you ask men about this or in research that you see. They want women who are warm, okay? Who are not so focused on being perfect, but who are warm and embracing and kind and fun, okay? That's what men find attractive. And so when you get to this place where you're saying, "You know what? I don't need to audition and have you choose me. All I need to do is figure out, are you the person that would be a good fit for my life? Because I have a great life. Let's see if we can get along." And when you start to realize that you have value and you're the prize and any man would be lucky to date you, then you're coming from a place of feeling fulfilled and confident and secure. And I'm going to tell you, the number one trait across all ages and all ethnicities, when you ask men, other than physical characteristics, what do you find the most sexy in a woman? They all say confidence. And confidence is not, I'm going to say true confidence is not based in your looks, because, I'm well over 40. And at some point, you realize that your looks are not going to be getting better anytime soon. Like, you're definitely aging out of your best look. And true confidence, though, comes from saying, I'm confident on who I am as a person, and I believe I'm a prize, and I believe that I am the good thing that a man would want to find. Okay, I don't believe I have to go out searching for a man. I can live a good life and he will show up. Now, as far as how you meet men, I think that's a whole other conversation. That's between you and the Lord. There's a lot of different ways to go about that. But I want you for today to just start to think about yourself as the prize, okay? And I really believe that is the foundational key to having a wonderful life. And I'd love to hear your comments. Also, I do have a free training for you, because if you are struggling with heartbreak, it can be very difficult to see yourself as a prize because you really feel like you're broken. If that's the case, I've got a free training for you. It's down here underneath the video. If you're listening to the podcast, it's in the show notes. It's called the ABCs of Healing. I walk you through how to start to move past heartbreak. And I really want to thank you for joining me today. And I will see you next time. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.